In today's show, Danny Marang is back on the program, and we're playing a game. It's Fill in the Blank Trailblazers edition. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. 3 days a week in August and the first couple weeks of September, and then we'll be back rolling along with 5 shows a week once the season gets started. But for now, we're finishing out Marang Week. If you missed any of the programs, Danny Marang from 1080 The Fan and Jacked Ramseys is on the show. He was on Tuesday's program. He's on Wednesday's program, and he's back today, and we're going to play a little game. Let's get into it. Joining me now, you remember him from Tuesday. You remember him from Wednesday because you've been listening all week long. It's Marang Week here on Locked On Blazers. Danny Marang from 1080 The Fan and Jacked Ramseys is back for Friday's show, and we're playing a game. You ready to do this?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's what I want to hear. Today's game is called Fill in the Blank. Ooh. I'm going to give you a sentence, and you're going to fill in the blank.
Oh, you got real creative in August. I like it.
Yeah, listen, okay. The first game that I typically play is What's More Likely, which is a game that I stole from Locked On Raptors host Sean Woodley. Shout out to Sean. Yeah. He does a great job. I was like, that's good.
Look, man, nothing on the radio is ever original, so trust me.
Yeah, I was like, I'm taking that.
I get it.
Then last week with Hyken, I played over-under.
You went
set the lines over-under. Those are my own over-unders. Shout out to listener Ben. He'll send. I know Ben will.
The ones with Chuck yet? Okay.
Yeah. Listener Ben will send over-unders when we get to like October, September. But today's show's fill in the blank because I want. They're all the same game. Spoiler, dear listeners, it's all the same game. But this is a different format. This is fill in the blank. I don't have a theme song, but if I did have a theme song, or say if like Michael from the future makes a theme song, it will play right now under where we're under this exact conversation. That music deck you hear is the theme song for Fill in the Blank.
Little Betty Hill under bed.
The Trailblazers' leading scorer this season will be blank. Okay,
even if it's only 55 games, it'll be Ant.
That's what I'm. Yeah, Ant 22.6 last year, Jeremy Grant 21, and after the All-Star break, DA 22.7. So that's what I was kind of getting to. Is there a world in which Anthony Simons averages 23 and then ends up on another team, and then DA averages 24 down the stretch, and we get there? Like, because I think it'll be close. Like, I think it'll be. I bet Anthony Simons averages in 23 a game next year.
I think if Ant is starting alongside Shaedon Sharpe, because I feel like I've been crapping on Scoot all weekend, and I love the kid, and I think he's going to put it together. I genuinely do think he's going to take a step this year. But it was a massive inhibition for Anthony Simons and the offense last year to play with Scoot Henderson.
Scoot was one of the worst players in the league.
Ant was playing 4-on-5 offensively in pick and rolls, and there was just nothing they could do.
Yeah, and Ant's weaknesses aren't complemented at all by Scoot. That's one of the biggest problems. It's that, like, hey, Ant's a bad defensive player. Well, Scoot's not going to help you there. It's like Ant needs another competent ball handler that can like pull defenses away and then attack
with gravity. Whether it's rim pressure or 3-point shooting, just some sort of gravity.
Yeah, and Scoot just doesn't complement his when I'll talk about it all the time on this program is like that. I'm not necessarily worried about the minutes because 3 guards can play. Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and Anthony Simons can all play as many minutes as they need to. Also as much minutes as they need to.
It's the fit and the rotations. Like that's what's going
on. It is the awkwardness that you're playing 2 guys and you're playing Scoot in a developmental situation that isn't particularly helpful, and you're playing Anthony Simons, who is, you're certainly your best offensive player, in a situation that doesn't allow him to be the best version of himself. I think even there's a bit of a wonkiness throwing DeAndre Ayton in that mix because he wants to operate in the middle of the floor at all times. Like he needs to be from 10 feet to 18 feet in the basically the width of the lane. And so like it's all wonky. But yeah, I would lean Anfernee Simons. I just think there's a world in which I wouldn't pick Jeremy, but I would say maybe there's a world in which DA, who we haven't talked about much this week, is the leading scorer on the team. But Ant is definitely the odds-on favorite in this one.
I think in particular, I think if Ant is given the reins and is starting alongside Shaden, where there's, because with that lineup, Ant, Shaden, Deni, Jeremy, DA. Look, we can talk about how bad this team's going to be and how it's 22. God, it's still hard for me to get to with what I think they're going to do. I think you're going to see some nights when that group looks really good. And I think I could see Chauncey Billups going, line change, and here's every player under the age of 23 all playing together. And, oh, that net rating is down to minus 20. It's like I can see those plus minuses. Hey, that starting group's got a really good plus minus. That bench group throughout the season, it's like minus 400. Like I could very easily see that happen where you're like, oh God, that's just two totally different things. Because I think that's kind of how they'll look to silo these things. Because it's not the veterans' job to make the young guys look better. And I think when you're asking these guys to do this for the third year, part of that concession has to be, okay, we're not going to make you play with all the kids all the time.
Yeah.
And whether or not that happens, I think, you know.
I wonder if Anfernee Simons gets fed up eventually, because he sounded pretty frustrated at the end of the year. And I wonder if this is where he's just like, hey, this is like, I know that I'm not perfect, but making my life harder every day is not a great working environment. And not that I would think would like, he's not the type of personality nor the level of player that says, get me the hell on out of here. No. But I could see a situation in which quietly in November, he says to Joe, hey, if someone comes a calling, make sure that I get a wind of it so I can figure out if that would
do me a favor and call Duff, loop Duff in and make sure we're good here.
Yeah. Make sure that I know about it, because I would, because maybe this is just not the right environment. Speaking of Scoot Henderson, Scoot will shoot blank at the rim this season. And let me give you a little bit of context here. Scoot will shoot blank at the rim this season. Last year, Scoot Henderson shot, according to Cleaning the Glass, shot 43.4% at the rim, which is kind of wild. It's kind of wild to shoot 43% at the rim. It's hard to do that. For context, Anfernee Simons, excluding his rookie season where he basically didn't play, so just counting the years where he was like on the court, shot 57, 57, 55. And then in 22-23, his clearly Anfernee Simons' best year, he shot 65% of the rim. That was kind of what changed for Ant. And then last year he was back down at 58. Team context obviously is involved in these percentages. But Scoot Henderson Anfernee Simons is not a good rim finisher, except for 1 year of his career. He's mostly a below average rim finisher, and he's like basically 25% better than Scoot. So Scoot will shoot X% at the rim, knowing that the splits are somewhere between about 45 and 55.
Okay, so I think the bar for being really bad at the rim is probably about 55%.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's Anfernee Simons. That's why I was using him as the line. It's like 57, 57, 55.
Well, I'm looking at last year's numbers too. LaMelo and Trey were both at 56%. Darius was at 59. Brunson was at 60. I think it's very difficult to be a plus 58% finisher when you're under 6'5". Like if you just look at it, like the one that stands out here is LaMelo. Like LaMelo being a poor finisher makes no sense. Like
right. And one of the secrets to De'Aaron Fox's rise was that he was a really good layup maker.
Yes.
And I think last year actually why he took a step back is because he stopped taking layups. Get to the rim, dog. I'm gonna go with 57%. I think he is going to take it because he was 47%. That would be a massive increase, obviously. Yeah,
it would be a massive increase, but he was atrocious. You and I talked about this
to begin the season. He was really bad. Yeah,
it's not that he's not talented. It's that he has, number one, no plan when he drives.
Right. It's the plan. Yeah,
and it's his footwork. Like you don't know if he doesn't know if he wants to go right foot, left foot. He doesn't know if he wants to go right hand, left hand. Like that whole putting English on the ball, right-handed on the other side. Like what the hell is brother, you are 6'2", like 210 pounds. Put a shoulder into somebody and use that. Like you're not Trae Young. You're not a $175. I honestly, if I'm covering games, I'd much rather see him pick up a charge for running somebody over for being aggressive towards the rim than see him like try to finish around somebody again. Like, no, like your game is a power game. Use power.
My big stat for Scoot, and I've shared this on the show before, is 14. He dunked the ball 14 times in 62 games.
Yeah, that's not. And there was
CJ McCollum. That's CJ McCollum. If your game is CJ McCollum and you're like an elite 18-foot jump shooter, you can get away with it.
Your floater game better be immaculate.
Right. And CJ has one of the most creative bags in the league, right? But and it's like but like Scoot needs to dunk I don't know, once a night. Like
you're not wrong. No, like one a night is I think that's fair.
Yeah, 14. So for me, I know a lot of people worried about the jump shot with Scoot, and obviously that will have to get a little bit better, but he was kind of fine at the end of the year shooting threes. Not like good by any means, but he was kind of fine.
His jumper throughout the year, and you and I think both kind of agree. Like those first couple of games, his jumper was whack. Like it was like, oh, he's being rushed. It's like his catch and shoot. I'm not talking about his off the dribble. His catch and shoot was a train wreck.
Way worse. Way worse.
It was
he would get terrible rhythm. Yeah.
And it was like, I actually like him better off the bounce. He actually ended up shooting better off the bounce during the season. But I think like post January, like late January, he quieted down on his catch and shoot. And it was like, there you go. He has to be functional in some sense, because if the Blazers do, move on from Anthony, he's got to be able to do remotely functional things off ball, whether it's Deni or Shaden running.
He doesn't need to be elite, but
something.
Agreed.
And so like, I think he gets to 56, 57% as a finisher. And I'm actually more bullish on his shooting than probably most people. I think that's actually going to be an easier thing for him to overcome than the finishing.
Yeah, I think he ended up shooting like in the 34, just under 34, something like that.
I think he'll shoot 36 plus.
Yeah,
I think he'll be an okay shooter.
Agreed. I think he has a pretty simple path to being a slightly below average 3-point shooter. We're talking 10 more made threes throughout the season. That's like 1.5 a month. Mm-hmm. He can get there. But if he can't make layups, he's not going to be good. He can. Players get better, and I think strength and balance and the ability to process stuff will all help him.
Most guys don't get better at finishing. Dame's kind of an exception. Like when you look at guys, most people either can finish or they can't, and that's where I raise my most concerning thing about Scoot is the finishing. Like that is the thing that I worry about his game developing, is that specific thing.
Yeah, he can. I am very confident he will shoot better. The question is at the rim. He'll be better at the rim. 43%.
Hard to be worse.
Yeah, it's according to Cleaning the Glass, that's like a 7th percentile.
The only guys worse were Saban Lee, Jalen Noel, and Jacob Gilyard.
Yeah, and Jacob Gilyard is my size. Like he's
I think you might actually be doing yourself a disservice. You might be bigger than Gilyard.
Well, I bet I'm heavier than him.
I know I am.
Yeah, I'm heavier than a lot of dudes who are like 6'5" in the league. I'm like, damn. Anyways, I got more questions for you, more games. That's what we'll do in the second segment. Join us there, won't you? We're filling in the blank. But first, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. It's the place for last-minute tickets. Gametime is the app that rewards procrastinators with up to 60% off. Up to 60% off when you wait to buy last-minute tickets. That could be last-minute tickets for sporting events, for comedy shows, for live theater, whatever you're trying to see. You're going to get rewarded for making it happen on Gametime. I like Gametime because it's super, super simple, super quick to use. You search exactly what you're looking for. For me, it's things like soccer in the summertime. I'm going to Thorns games here in Portland. I'm going to Timbers games here in Portland. You pull up the app, you see the arena right on your phone, and then what you see is what you get pricing. If it says it's going to cost you $51, well, guess what? When you get to checkout, no convenience fees, no surprises, no nothing. It's $51 right there. Super quick, super easy, and great deals. Flash deals, section deals. You can have Game Time find that ticket for you, and save yourself a little bit of money. They're always making it easy for you to procrastinate and still go to the games you want to see. So take the guesswork out of buying last minute tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get 20% off your first purchase. Again, super simple. Download the app, create an account, use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off your first purchase. Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, still chatting with Danny Marang of 1080 The Fan and Jacked Ramseys. Fill in the blank, Danny. Shaedon Sharpe will dunk the ball blank number of times this season. We're talking dunks here. I got dunks on the brain when I was creating this game. Here's a little context for you. In year one, Shaedon Sharpe dunked the ball 62 times in 80 games. And then he dunked the ball 26 times in 32 games in year two. In year one, about 29% of his shots came inside 3 feet. But in year two, just 23.5% of his attempts came inside 3 feet. In year one, 10% of his shots were dunks, and just 7% of his shots were dunks in year two. All of those numbers to say, because I threw a lot of numbers at you, and dear listeners, I threw a lot of numbers at you as well, is Shaedon Sharpe stopped getting to the rim as much in his second season. He's a freak.
I think that was a two-part
freak.
Thing.
Yeah. So how many times is he going to dunk the ball?
I will say whatever 0.8 per game.
80% of his field goal attempts, or 8%. Excuse me, 8% of his.
I think that's kind of where he'll end up. The big thing for me is on the limitations for why I think it went down. I think it's a two-part thing, but there's three things that kind of went into that. That's real great math right there. In the first part, the two parts that went into this are his shot diet changed because he was running the offense, because they could not run Scoot and Ant was injured. And it was like, well, Scoot, Shaedon, familiarize yourself with pick and rolls with DeAndre Ayton, of which neither of you know each other, trust each other, or have any idea of how this is going to work. Oh, by the way, all 10 eyes defensively are on you. Enjoy. And I charted every one of DA and Shaedon's pick and rolls last year before Shaedon went down. And the first 5-6 games, every single pass was a parallel pass, not a single penetrating pass. And it was because there was nowhere to go, because teams were just walling up and saying, good luck. So he had no chance, and he wasn't working off ball because nobody else could dribble. So those backdoor cuts just weren't there. So
he worked to the baseline a bunch as a rookie, and he didn't do that as much in year two.
Because he couldn't, because he was on the ball consistently whenever he was out there. The other part of this is the injury. He was playing with it for a while. I want to say he was probably playing with a bit of a ding for about 2 or 3 weeks. I kept asking him, "You okay?" He's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." I mean, you know how guys get when you've been around guys long enough to kind of know you're full of it. What's going on, man? And he admitted after the surgery, he's like, "Yeah, I was really fighting it there for a couple of weeks." On that note, that might get me in trouble. Who cares? The Blazers have made some changes to the medical staff. That's I don't know whether when they're going to announce that. I'm sorry to take the wind of their sails there, but they've had too many core injuries and they just couldn't go down that path anymore.
Interesting.
Whether it's Dame, whether it's Nas, whether it's Shaedon, even if they couldn't draw a direct line to it, it's just something had to change, and you're not going to cycle out your players. So you make some changes in the medical staff. So, but beyond that, I think it's pretty easy for me. Again, knocking on wood, all health permitting, if they're healthy, Shaedon should be a guy who twice a week you're seeing on SportsCenter.
Yeah, I was going to say that is what this question initially was how many oh crap moments will he average a week? Because in his
at least year, 2 of 3 games a week.
Yeah, in his rookie year he was pretty rough, but he would still do at least one thing athletically that you'd be like, oh wow, no one else can do that.
The block that he had was in LA.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, how did he recover and get to that?
Yeah. Or like a rebound in traffic where he just kind of he's floats. Flat-footed and he jumps up to 12.5 feet and kind of just and you're like, oh, That's cool. Like that's
a
cool.
Joel Embiid's face when Wemby did that to him in the final.
Yeah.
He just like took an offensive rebound over the top of Joel's back, and Joel looked like nobody's ever done that to me before.
He's like, that has to be against the rules.
Exactly. But that's what Shaedon does too. Like he does stuff that defies gravity, and you're like, that's different. And I think you should probably see 2 dunks a week. If you're averaging, 3 games a week, two games a week, there should be a dunk where you go, where the locks are flying and he's cocked back and somebody's about to die.
Yeah, I think if they play a little faster, something they were just unable to do last year for a variety of reasons. Some of it is I think they just abandoned the commitment to it, and I think that was
well. Mike, could you watch 27 turnovers a night?
But they played one of the slowest paces in the league.
Oh no, you're not wrong. But that's like that was for Chauncey's own mental health. I think like that's what that was. It's like I can't sit here and watch these guys turn the ball over this way. Like I agree with you. They need to be faster. Like they went from the Neil Olshey era was the least athletic team in the entire association. I don't even think it's up for a debate. Like Dame CJ Nurk, you couldn't draw 3 players out of a hat with less vertical and burst athleticism if you tried. If you took 500 players and put them in a hat, you could not take 3 worse than those 3 guys. Love their games, but athletically, those aren't
hard to do it and win 48 games or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's just like, so do they need to get out and run? Absolutely. And Shaedon needs to be better about getting out and running. There was times last year
100%.
I was like, buddy, you got to go.
They would get on him in transition defense about not sprinting back as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a big deal for him. You, if you watch closely, we have a great from Media Row, a great view of the assistant coaching,
right of the coaches.
And I love watching an angry coach. It's one of my favorite things to do on press row. And they would get on his ass for not running back sometimes. And it goes both ways. He needs to change ends faster than anyone else. I think Deni will help with that a lot.
Deni likes to go. Like Deni, if you haven't watched Deni, I'll have a breakdown video coming out of him in the next week or so. He likes to grab and go, and he doesn't play with burst, but he does like his mode of attack is put shoulder in front of hip and like get low and get by. So he's a power physical. Yeah.
And so physical.
And when you play like that, you have to play fast because if defenses are set, it's harder to get around the corner. So you start picking up the pace a little bit.
Tumani can play in transition. Jeremy, if you make him, can be a good transition player.
Donovan's the only guy who's not going to be able to run the floor. Like, otherwise, the entire roster could run.
I'm curious about DA as a guy who sprints end to end for 32 minutes a night. He's fast.
He's opportunistic.
But that's a different thing. That's like that playing at full speed. That's a different ask for him.
For sure.
I don't know. Asking any 7-footer, but
watching Donovan during summer league, I was like, oh, he can't play fast.
Yeah, he's not going to change ends. He's a hit ahead guy. He's going to hit ahead.
It's a great thing that he can pass. I go outlet pass. Let's see how good that outlet pass it gets, big fella.
Okay. Speaking of Donovan Clingan will finish X. Will finish blank in the Rookie of the Year voting. Where you got Clingan finishing?
Debating between second and third.
Hey, there we go. I was hoping we'd get hot.
I don't think it's because he's just so much better than everybody else. I think the ask for him is less, and the thing that they're asking him to do, he's very good at. It is block shots and rebound. Anybody that will listen, I've said this on the radio a million times. Donovan Clingan's per 36 numbers are going to be cartoonish.
Yeah, they're going to be really good. Yeah, he's going to block a lot of shots. Yeah.
Like he's going to play like 17 minutes and his per 36 is like, well, he averages 5.2 blocks per 36. And you're like, why is this guy averaging like 19 rebounds and 5 blocks in his per 36? I'm like, well, he plays about 16 minutes, give or take, and he gets half that. And that's because think about it. If I told you he's playing 17 minutes and he's pulling down 7 rebounds and he's getting like 1.8 blocks or 2 blocks a night, that's really not that hard. Like, yes, the 2 blocks sounds like a lot.
The 2 blocks is a lot, but he could do it.
The thing is, like, he knows what he big.
And he just knows what he does.
Yeah.
More than a lot of young guys, he knows what he does. He's not a guy who's going to be confused about how he gets paid, right? Like he knows the thing. He knows the thing that's going to make him a rich person is by doing the things he's best at, and he has a strong understanding of what he's best at. I think most guys in the league think. I remember this a while ago, but I remember Al Farouk Aminu once told me, he's like, I could score pretty well in college. Like, I didn't always think of myself as like this defensive stopper. And I was like, well, Chief, how quickly did you realize that you couldn't score too well in the pros?
He was at Wake. He could score.
Yeah, he was the 8th overall pick for a reason, but it didn't work.
No, but you look at this class. I think everybody keeps pointing to Reed as the guy. I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing with Clingan though. Same with Reed Shepherd. It's like, often rookie awards are a minutes per game award. It's just a production award. It's like did you play?
What is your betting partner?
FanDuel.
If you're going on FanDuel, which you can't at Oregon, but anyways, I would very strongly urge, for entertainment purposes only, Zach Edey. Zach Edey, I think, is where you can get absolutely the most value because he's going to start more than half their games.
Yeah, he's going to play a lot, and he fits with what they want to do.
On a good team, and he's going to go like Jaren Jackson Jr. is like, I don't have to rebound. Like, I don't have to be down there. Which means Zach Edey is going to gobble rebounds.
And the things that Zach Edey will struggle with in the pros are not going to show up in the box score. And the things that he's good at in the pros he's going to be a legend at the bank.
Mashing,
legend of the box score. Legend of the box score.
Mashing and rebounding. I don't think he's going to block that many shots as a shot blocker, but I think he's going to get enough because he's 7'5". Also,
yeah, he might average 12 and 12 pretty easily. God,
walking around at Summer League, Wemby was a thing last year. Edey's a whole different beast, man. You remember when we used to giggle when Yao would come around? It's like that. It's like, oh, you're huge. Like, he's just, it's comical. Like when you're around these guys all the time, he's big compared to
bigger than when you get the guys that are like bigger than the other pros. That's when it gets really funky, right? It's
when I remember asking the Blazers players about playing Wemby for the first time, and the look on Jeremy Grant's face when I asked him about Wemby, he goes, like, he just shrugged and put up his shoulder and like squinted his eyes, like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
Like you have an NBA Olympian just being flat out like flabbergasted by somebody's size. Like that's a whole different level of crazy.
Okay, I got a couple more questions. We're going to close the show with Fill in the Blank and Danny Marang. Join us in that third segment, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still chatting with Danny Marang of 1080 The Fan and Jacked Ramseys. Fill in the blank. Deni Avdija will be the Blazers' blank best player next season.
God, this one's tough. I'll say second.
I was going to say second too. I'm a believer. I really
like Deni.
And I also think the path to being the current Blazers' second best player is pretty wide open. It's pretty wide open.
This is the hill that I'm dying on. It's not a Deni specific hill. And I don't know. I think we've talked about this before. As much as everybody talks about skill sets and value and like value propositions in the NBA and moneyballing things, to me, the most valuable commodity, the rarest commodity in the entire NBA is not shooting. It's not scoring. It's playmaking, and playmaking with size. Playmaking with size is the rarest commodity in the NBA, hands down. When you think about guys that can legitimately create, not just for themselves, but for others, and not create by like, well, if I drive, maybe somebody will help. I'm talking about, I have a plan. In that gold medal game against France, LeBron James had the ball late. I want to say in the mid fourth quarter, late in the clock. And they've worked it around the horn. France hasn't moved because they're in that stubborn 2-3 zone. They don't have to leave the paint. And Braun, with like 6 seconds on the clock, just says, screw it. Kind of pump fakes his strive for greatness 3, puts his shoulder down, knowing that LeBron James putting his shoulder down at this point in the clock means I'm going to dictate tempo. And immediately help from the strong side corner off of Kevin bleeping Durant. Swings it over to KD. KD takes 3. He missed, but he knew, like, I can take this strive for greatness 3, or I can put the pressure, and I know that either A, I'm going to run over Evan Fournier because he's nowhere near my weight class, or they're going to help. And like, Deni Avdija is not LeBron James, but watching his film, one of the things that I've noticed is that he doesn't make 4 reads while he's driving, but he has one in his head, and as another one develops, he sees it. So he makes not just I would say he makes basic reads on a very high level. I would say,
one of the things you'll see, I think Blazer fans when they watch him, is he's really good at the in the NBA when someone drives, you fill behind. That's a very common action you'll see. Is like, so if someone's at the wing and you drive for like an angled dribble into the paint, the guy from the corner will lift up to the wing. You'll lift up to where the guy just left. Those fill behind cuts is a very just natural action league. Deni is really good at feeling that. He has a really good feel for
ripping
that.
it right back where he came from.
Yeah, exactly. Throwing a little hook pass right where he just left. He has a really good feel for that. Now throwing it to Jabari Walker and Chris Murray might not be as fruitful as you wanted, but Jeremy Grant could shoot, and if he lifts there and Ant playing off the ball, lifting there, like that's a simple read, like you were saying. Yes. That's a very base, but he's really good at it, and he has a really good. Yeah,
I would say his advanced reads, he's above average. Like if the bar for advanced reads in the NBA, I'm trying to think of a forward who's kind of comparable in that sense. Kyle Anderson is a guy that you can make advanced reads. Now, I think slow-mo doesn't do them as well on the dribble. I think he's more Boris Diaw, where like stationary reads, and Yusuf Nurkic is kind of the same, where like stationary reads, they do really well, but active reads while dribbling, there's maybe like 30 guys in the entire league that can like make reads while having a live dribble going to the rim. Like that's why I call it the rarest commodity in the league. He makes that drop-off pass. Like that when the big commits from the weak side or the help comes all the way across and that he feels on his shoulder, he's really good at feeling that and making that skip pass to the opposite side or the drop off pass. I would say he probably feels that about 70% of the time and makes the read correctly. Sometimes he's a step behind with the pass and it's a little bit rushed. That's where you see him get a little bit flustered. But I think like those are the things for Deni, like that allow him to be that second best player. I love JG, one of my favorite dudes ever to cover as a human. Jeremy gets the ball with 10 seconds left on the clock. Just start running back. Like that thing ain't coming out. We know that shot's going up. So it's not a shot at him, but he's a play finisher. That's what he does. Deni allows them to unlock some stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a world where Deni is the Blazers' best player. That's probably not a great sign for the Portland Trailblazers, but I think I want
to flip this on you. What do you think? I know it's crazy to say this, but like, what are the heights that Deni could get to? You think on a good team on a slash line? Because this is a conversation I've had with more than a few people.
Yeah, I think he could pretty comfortably be like 15-5-5, like 48. 36. I don't know. He shoots with the free throw line 75.
Yeah.
But like
that feels comfortable, right?
Yeah, I think he's like I think he's a 15-5-5 guy without like okay. We talked about this on Tuesday's show. Like I wasn't surprised the Blazers had to pay 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a veteran to make the money work to get Deni Avdija. I was surprised that the Blazers were the team to do it because I thought if Deni Avdija was tradable, he was tradable to a team that was going to shell out first round picks because he's helpful and good. Yeah. Like, and not that he won't help a bad team, but like for me, when I was like, in my brain, in my like rebuild brain, Deni didn't seem to be the target, and what the price would be for Deni didn't make sense for where the Blazers are in their situation. Now I am very comfortable watching this and saying like, hey, they knew it better than I did, right? Like I'm good at being wrong. I do this every day. You're going to talk into a microphone, you're going to say stuff, you're going to be wrong, you're going to share opinions that don't hold up, right? And you have to be able to pivot off of them or everyone emails you about them all the time. And so like I'm a believer in Deni's skills pretty heavily. Yeah. I just thought
which is such a weird thing to say about a guy from the Blazers.
Right. I'm just curious why the Blazers were the team that made that bet. And I think it's telling that the Wizards were like, hell yeah, 2 firsts for Deni. Let's do it. I think there's a world in where we get to March or whatever. And Deni Avdija is like very clearly the Blazers' most impactful player when you account for both sides of the ball and all those things. I think that is, I have no trouble believing that he could be there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you to an extent. My pushback would be for everybody's like, I can't believe they gave up, picks to get him. The whole point of those picks is to get good young players.
Right, is to get players who are good. Yeah, it's a different calculation though. A first round pick, obviously not this draft is different, but like a first round pick is under team control for 8 or 9 years.
9 years, as opposed to 4, because they can't. If they can, and I think I've heard you say this, if they can extend Deni, it hasn't gone as well.
It means he's bad. Yeah, it means he's bad.
It hasn't gone as well as you hope. The hope is like that you get a situation where he's amenable. Like maybe he's Jalen Brunson. Like he blows up.
Even then, his last year of his salary is like $11.5 million. Yeah. So look, a 40% raise off.
I'm just saying you can get him on maybe a cheaper deal.
Right. I guess there's a world in which they like create cap space that summer and they sign him as a with cap space if he's that good and he wants to be around, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, they will have had his bird rights at that point in time.
Yeah.
So.
Right, but they can only give him so much money, so they got to. It's the Hartenstein thing, right? It's the Knicks would have. They said Isaiah Hartenstein,
Brunson, not the Hartenstein. Like you got to.
The Hartenstein thing is like I think. Yeah, I think the Knicks offered him $72 million, which was literally every single dollar they could offer him. It was like 3 for 72, 84, 86 or something like that. Yeah, so it was like he was like, yeah, hey, thanks, I love this, but this is $15 more million, and that's
my earning window is meow.
Yeah, like this is it. This is my contract.
You don't begrudge it one bit.
I get to sign one of them, and I think Deni is he's young and he has a chance to probably sign 2 more deals if everything works out for him in the league. But like the next one is it's so weird with the money now. It's like $55 million probably feed my family okay, but like the next one is the crazy one, right? The next one is the triple digits millions one.
Well, I mean, Wemby's going to be the first $100 million player a year.
Yeah, right. It's somebody is going to do it
at the rate we are going. His 9th year going into his 10th year, when he can get his full blown, no holds barred supermax. I did the math on it. I think it was like 105 a year.
Yeah, assuming that it keeps.
Which everybody I've talked to in the league, with the way the TV deal is right now, everyone believes that even at that point, they will still have had the 10% maxes. Now we aren't. Guaranteed to not have any potential diseases that shut down the entire world. That might make it a little bit difficult.
A drastic change in how people consume television.
In economics. Yeah,
exactly.
So.
Okay, last one. I think we've talked about this a bunch, so we don't have to spend a ton of time on it.
Yeah.
The Blazers will win blank number of games next season.
So 2016, I made a significant amount of money on that over-under total because it was very easy to go 26.5.
Yeah, it was like 23 maybe at one point. It was like, of course they're going to win a 24th game.
When I got it at 26.5, I was in Vegas, and it was one of the. This isn't to toot my own horn because I've had some bad beats. It was the single biggest sports betting win I've ever had, because it was like, how did they not see at least 30? Like, even if things go, this team that we just watched this past year won 21 games and they were awful. 30 is not a bar with when you had those guys. It was that difficult. My question is, how many games are they going to win in the first 6 weeks? Because that is the difference.
When you get to February 1st, it's going to be on.
It's go time.
Yeah, it's going to be on.
And it's going to be 7 teams at least. This is going. We saw egregious stuff with Wemby, but because I think he was an international prospect, I don't. Maybe that's just me, but my feeling is even people then in front offices didn't truly believe. Having talked to people that were at the practice for Team USA, there isn't an organization in the NBA that if they have injuries or if something goes wrong, that they aren't going to do the most egregious thing imaginable to possibly land that kid.
Yeah, the difference is there are some incentives there are more mechanisms that keep the ninth best team competitive, right? I think
Sure.
that's the difference. The ninth, particularly in the West, it'll
Yeah.
be in the East. It's pretty clearly like 8 good teams, and then there's 7.
There's a hard
stinky,
line. Yeah.
there's
And
7
I
stinky
think,
ones.
and like, I think Golliver wrote about it in talking to GMs down there that, the, the, the idea, the zeitgeist of what people think was thrown on its head pretty quickly when he went for 11, 6, and 5 and a quarter. It was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. So it's really hard for me to put a line down on this. For me, I wouldn't touch it. 21.5 is like as bad as 26.5 was in 2016. This is the opposite of that. This is so good. It's nuclear.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 22 because I think fortuitously they will win a couple games that you're like, maybe I should have pulled the plug a little bit earlier, but I don't think you're going to, like, every year for the last couple of years has been like this. Well, if they hadn't lost this game, they would have had the best odds. And then, who have we seen win the lottery? It wasn't the team with the worst odds. And so it's like, yeah, you want the best odds because you want that 14%, but also it's like the Pistons exist.
Right. I think there is reason for them to be bad. And I think they'll naturally be one of the 5 worst teams in the league, probably, like record wise. But like, for me, I don't think they need to chase losses from the word go.
No,
I think they'll naturally get a lot of losses. Yeah, I think they'll naturally get like I draw the line for me is like tanking is intentionally losing. Tanking is not letting Shaedon Sharpe play against the Spurs because you have to lose the game. It's putting John Butler Jr. in at point guard and not challenging a charge play in the final seconds of a game because there's losing, right? It's signing guys off the street who you have no intention of having them be part of the plan because it's running Keon Johnson and CJ Ellaby out there for the last 10 games because like, who cares? Like even knowing full well what you're doing, that to me is tanking.
Taze Moore getting loose.
Yeah. What the Blazers are going to do early in the season is just be bad. To me, that's different. At some point, they're going to be a tanking team, but I don't think they need to chase it all year. My number has been 23-24, but I keep thinking it's like, how quickly do they need to win 24 of their first 60 games? And then because it's like
Nate Duncan helped everything.
Yeah, because Nate Duncan helped me kind of think of this when listening to him once. It's like, think about how if they tried to win every single game, how many games would this team win? I don't know, 29, something like that. 29. It's like that's kind of what I think they'd be if they tried to win every single game. Because I just think the West is so freaking good, and I think their top end talent is. I think they have the worst best player of any team in the Western Conference, and I think that alone is going to be tough on a lot of nights. If you're legit, best case scenario is 32 wins, and you're pretty clearly a team that has been egregious in your willingness to lose. What's your worst case scenario? It's low. The number is low.
It's like 14.
Yeah, it's low.
Like it's Pistons bad. Like it's
low.
It's to lose is a real thing, and it's for everyone out there. Like again, this is your show, so I'll steal one of your lines. I'm not trying to be the thief of anyone's joy or telling anyone how to fan, but if you're asking my opinion on what this organization is going to do, and you want me to be honest, I'm going to tell you to your face, prepare for very bad basketball in 2025.
Like, yeah, I think tanking is a scourge. Like, I think it's awful for the fan experience. I think it's insulting to the sport and to the league and to the game.
And it is still the single most valuable way for Portland to rebuild.
If you look at this roster and you say like, if they get the 7th pick, they'll be okay. You're crazy. Like this team needs a star so badly. And the way that a team like them acquires a star is through the draft. And that's their path.
You get guys that come here on their 2nd and 3rd contracts when they have families and they go, God, this place isn't bad. I wish I would have known about this earlier. That's what you get. You don't ever, the young guys never coming here. Like that's
And increasingly, the league is not a free agent league. Like they're just that's not like it's role players change teams in free agency.
My goodness.
And it's the sign and trade era, right? Like free agency might just be dead in general because of the new CBA. So like it stinks. It's bad. I am going to record a podcast hundreds of times this year. I'll be right there with y'all, but I think it's the path forward. It's the
reason why in the season Sprague and I only do 2. You were a stronger man than both of us.
Oh, hey, it's the model and it works. It's what makes Locked On Blazers special is that it's there every day. Deni, if people are looking for more of your work, where can they find it?
Oh, yeah, you can find me every day, noon to 3 with my co-host Dusty here on Teddy and the Fan. The Jacked Ramseys podcast available on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. And if you want to get more in depth, the Jacked Ramseys Patreon. Like I said, I've got a long form, 4,000 word clip video deep dive into Deni Avdija, because I know 98% of you have never watched Deni Avdija play basketball.
It's true. You didn't have much reason to watch the Wizards.
It's okay.
I would agree. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Deni, thanks for hanging out this week. It was a whole bunch of fun.
Oh, thanks for being on, man. Appreciate you.
Listeners, this was Marang Week. If you missed it, go back in your feeds. It's waiting for you, Deni. This is the 3rd show he's done this week, and that's what we do this time of year. In August, we're 3 days a week. We'll be 3 days a week for the whole month of August. In September, the first couple weeks of September, will be 3 days a week, and then we will hit the ground running and be back 5 days a week wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I would really appreciate if you made it this far into it. This is a longer show on Friday. Just looking at the ticker, we ran a little long on a Friday.
No way. Me running long.
If you made it this far into the program, tell a friend. That's the best way to support the show. You can comment, you can like, you could subscribe, you can leave us a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. That stuff's great. But the way that the show grows and the way that you can help me if you're in this deep is tell one friend. If you have a friend who likes the Blazers and you think they would like Locked On Blazers, tell them they can get it wherever they get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. We'll be back with 3 more next week. I'll talk to you soon.